I was driving home from Denver, my hands loose on the steering wheel, thinking about how lucky I was. The conference had wrapped up a day early, which meant I would get to see Amber before I expected to. 3 weeks until our wedding. 5 years together. 1 year engaged. She was everything I had ever wanted in a partner. And the fact that she wanted to wait until marriage made me respect her even more. It showed conviction in a world that had forgotten what that meant. My older brother Kyle had been staying with us for the past 2 months, after his second divorce. And I figured he would be surprised to see me home early too. I never expected that the 2 people I trusted most would become strangers in a single afternoon. Before I tell you what happened when I walked through that door, I need to know something. Where are you watching this from? Drop your location in the comments below. And if you have not already, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel, because what I am about to share changed everything I thought I knew about loyalty, trust, and the person I almost married. If you have ever felt betrayed by someone you loved, this story might hit close to home. Let me take you back to where it all began. I met Amber 5 years ago at a coffee shop in Portland. I was a software engineer, 23 years old, focused on building my career. She was a graphic designer with this incredible energy that filled every room she walked into. She laughed, easily cared deeply about environmental causes, and had this way of making you feel like you were the only person in the world when she talked to you. We bonded over our shared love of hiking, indie films, and board games. 6 months into dating, she told me about her decision to wait until marriage. She said it was something she had committed to years before we met, rooted in her personal values. I respected that immediately. More than respected it. I admired it. In a culture that often prioritized instant gratification, her choice felt intentional and meaningful. It told me she was someone who thought deeply about her decisions. Someone who would not be swayed by pressure or trends. So we built our relationship on other foundations. Long conversations over coffee. Weekend hikes through the Columbia River Gorge. Cooking dinner together, while debating whether Christopher Nolan was overrated. We connected emotionally, intellectually, spiritually. Physical intimacy felt like something we were saving for the right moment, and I genuinely believed our wedding night would be worth the wait. 2 months ago, my older brother Kyle showed up at my door with 2 suitcases and a story about his second failed marriage. Kyle was 32. A sales manager with the kind of charm that could sell ice to someone living in Alaska. He was outgoing, the life of every party, always knew what to say to make people laugh. Growing up, I was the quiet one, the one who preferred books to bars, strategy games to sports. Kyle was the golden child, at least socially. But his personal life was a wreck. 2 divorces before 35. A string of jobs that never quite worked out. Still, he was my brother. And when he asked if he could crash with us for a few weeks while he figured things out, I said yes without hesitation. Amber was supportive. She said family comes first, that he could stay as long as he needed. In those first few weeks, everything seemed fine. Kyle helped around the house, did the dishes, played video games with me in the evenings. He and Amber got along well. They would cook together sometimes while I worked late, or sit on the porch sharing stories about their childhoods. I thought it was nice that my fiancé and my brother were building a rapport. I thought it meant we were becoming the kind of family I had always wanted. But then, small things started to shift. Amber began checking her phone more often, smiling at the screen, in ways that made me curious. When I asked what was funny, she would say it was just memes from her coworkers. One evening I came home earlier than usual and found them sitting close together on the couch. They both jumped when I walked in, moving apart quickly. Kyle said he was just showing her photos from his trip to Austin. Amber turned red and would not meet my eyes. I told myself I was being paranoid, that work stress was making me imagine problems where there were none. Another night I woke up at 2 in the morning and reached for Amber, but her side of the bed was empty. I went downstairs and found her in the kitchen making tea. She said she could not sleep, that wedding planning was stressing her out. I believed her, because I wanted to believe her, because the alternative was too painful to consider. I hugged her, told her everything would be perfect, and we went back to bed. But that uneasy feeling stayed with me, a quiet hum in the background of my thoughts. Then, my company sent me to Denver for a 3-day conference. Amber kissed me goodbye at the door, holding me a little longer than usual. She said she would miss me, but that the trip would be good for my career. While I was in Denver, I tried to video call her every evening. The first night, she said she was working late on a client project. The second night, she was at a yoga class. The third night, she finally answered but seemed rushed, telling me she was exhausted and asking if we could talk the next day. I felt shut out but told myself I was being needy. The conference ended a day early, and I decided to fly home and surprise her. I imagined her face lighting up when I walked through the door with flowers. I stopped at a shop near the airport and bought a bouquet of tulips, her favorite. On the drive home, I planned out the evening in my head. I would cook her favorite pasta dish. Maybe we could watch a movie. Just relax together. Before the final wedding preparations kicked into high gear. I pulled into the driveway at 6 in the evening on a Thursday. Kyle's car was still there, which I expected. I figured he was probably watching television or working on his laptop. The house was quiet when I unlocked the front door. But as I stood in the entryway, I heard something. Faint sounds coming from upstairs. Music, maybe. I was not sure. I set my bag down, still holding the bouquet, and started up the staircase. The sounds grew clearer. Not music. Something else. My heart began to pound, a sick feeling spreading through my chest. The sounds were coming from my bedroom. The door was cracked open just slightly. Part of me wanted to turn around to walk back down those stairs and pretend I had never come home early. But I pushed the door open. What I saw will be burned into my memory for the rest of my life. Amber and Kyle were in my bed, tangled together, completely unaware of my presence. They were so caught up in each other that they did not notice me standing there. I felt my body go numb, like my brain could not process what my eyes were seeing. The bouquet of tulips slipped from my hand and hit the floor. The sound made them both freeze. Amber turned her head and saw me. Her eyes went wide, her face draining of color. Kyle scrambled off the bed, trying to cover himself. For a moment, none of us moved. None of us spoke. It was like time had stopped, like the universe itself was holding its breath. Then, Amber whispered my name. Just my name. Orville. Her voice was shaking, tears already streaming down her face. Kyle stood there pulling on his pants, his expression somewhere between guilt and panic. I still could not speak. My throat felt like it had closed up. My hands were trembling. Finally, I managed to ask the only question that mattered. How long? My voice sounded foreign to me, cold and flat. Amber was sobbing now, pulling the blanket up to cover herself. She kept saying she was sorry over and over, but she would not answer the question. Kyle tried to speak. He said it just happened, that they did not mean for it to go this far. I cut him off. I raised my voice for the first time, demanding to know how long this had been going on. Amber choked out the answer. 2 months. 2 months. Since the day Kyle moved in. Every late night at work. Every yoga class. Every time she said she was too tired to talk. It was all a lie. The woman I had been planning to marry had been sleeping with my brother under my own roof for 2 months. I felt like someone had reached into my chest and ripped out everything vital. I looked at Kyle, my older brother, the person who was supposed to protect me. I said his name and then added, "You are my brother." He could not look at me. He stared at the floor and mumbled something about it being complicated. I laughed. It was a bitter, hollow sound. "Complicated," I said. "You had sex with my fiancée. There is nothing complicated about that." Amber climbed out of the bed, wrapping herself in a robe. She reached for me, begging me to let her explain. I stepped back. She said she loved me, that she really did. But then she trailed off. I asked her to finish the sentence. "But what you are saving yourself. That is what you told me. That is what I respected about you." She was crying so hard she could barely speak. She said she wanted to wait. She really did. But then Kyle appeared in the doorway, now fully dressed. He said something that made my blood run cold. He said Amber needed something I could not give her, that I was too careful, too predictable, that she needed passion. Amber told him to stop, but he kept talking. And then he said the words that cut deeper than anything else that night. You are a virgin. You would never get it. He said it like it was an explanation. Like my respect for Amber's boundaries, my willingness to wait, my commitment to building something meaningful, was a weakness. Like my decency was the reason they had betrayed me. Amber was still crying, saying that was not what it was about, but the damage was done. I stood there looking at the two people I had trusted most in the world, and they felt like strangers. People I had never known at all. I did not yell. I did not scream. I just turned around and walked down the stairs. Amber ran after me, asking where I was going, saying we needed to talk. I grabbed my car keys from the counter. I told her there was nothing to talk about. She brought up the wedding. I said there was no wedding. My voice was calm, almost eerily calm. She collapsed against the wall, begging me not to do this, saying it was a mistake. Kyle stood at the top of the stairs, silent now, guilt written all over his face. I looked at him one last time and told him to be out of my house by the next day. Both of them. Then I walked out, got in my car, and drove away. I did not know where I was going. I just drove until I ended up in the parking lot of a grocery store. I sat there in the driver's seat, my hands shaking so badly I could barely hold the steering wheel. And then I cried. I cried for the first time since my father had passed away 3 years earlier. I spent that night at my best friend Marcus's apartment. He was a coworker, someone I had known for years. When I told him what happened, he could barely believe it. He kept saying he did not have words, that it was beyond anything he could imagine. He told me I could stay as long as I needed. That night, I lay on his couch, staring at the ceiling, unable to sleep. My mind kept replaying every moment, every lie, every sign I had missed, and Kyle's words kept echoing. You are a virgin. You would never get it. By morning, something had shifted in me. The shock was giving way to anger. But more than anger, there was clarity. I was not going to let them destroy me. I was not going to be the victim in this story. I was a planner, someone who thought strategically, and I was going to use that now, not for revenge, but for justice, for protecting myself, my assets, and my future. The first thing I did was call a lawyer. Jane Hartwell had handled some legal work for my family before, and I trusted her. I explained the situation, and she listened without judgment. Then she gave me a plan. Document everything. Save texts. Create a timeline. Make sure I had proof of what happened. She reminded me that the house was mine. I had bought it 2 years before I met Amber. I had added her to the title as a gesture of commitment, but legally I could have her removed. It would take time, but it was my property. As for Kyle, he was just staying there temporarily. No lease. No legal claim. I could evict him immediately. Jane started the process that day. She also advised me to cancel all the wedding vendors and try to recover any deposits I could. When I asked about the engagement ring, she said that in Oregon, an engagement ring is considered a conditional gift. If the wedding does not happen, the ring should be returned. If Amber refused, I could take legal action. For the first time since walking through that door, I felt like I had some control back. I was not just reacting, I was acting. I called the wedding venue and explained I needed to cancel. They kept the deposit but refunded the rest. I called the caterer, the photographer, the florist. Some were understanding, some kept their deposits. I accepted it. It was a small price to pay compared to what I had almost walked into. Then came the hardest part. Telling my family. I called my mother, Linda. She was shocked, kept saying she could not believe it. I told her I had seen them with my own eyes. There was a long silence, and then she started crying. She apologized, said she did not know what to say about Kyle. I told her I was not asking her to choose between her sons. She said Kyle was her son, but what he did was unforgivable. That I was her son too, and she was on my side. I also called Amber's parents. They needed to hear it from me before rumors started spreading. The conversation was painful. Amber's mother, Patricia, was in denial at first. insisting her daughter would never do something like that. I told her I had seen it myself, that I was sorry. She broke down apologizing over and over. Amber's father, Robert, got angry. He said Kyle was no good, never had been. I realized then that Amber's family had seen something in Kyle that I had missed. They had noticed things at family dinners, warning signs I had been too trusting to catch. Over the next few days, Amber tried to contact me constantly. Texts flooded my phone. Please talk to me. I made a terrible mistake. I love you, not him. We can work through this. I did not respond to any of them. She called, but I let it go to voicemail. One night she showed up at Marcus's apartment. Marcus answered the door and told her I did not want to see her. She was crying, begging him to let her explain. I came to the door and told her there was nothing to explain. I just wanted the ring back. She seemed hurt that I was focused on the ring, but I told her it was mine, and I wanted it back. She pulled it from her purse, her hand shaking, as she handed it to me. She said she never meant to hurt me. I told her she had hurt me and she had kept doing it for 2 months. Then I closed the door. Kyle received the eviction notice a few days later. He texted me asking if I was really going to kick him out. I told him he had 10 days as per the law. He said he was my brother. I replied with 2 words. Past tense. He tried calling, but I blocked his number. My mother called a few days later saying Kyle was staying at a motel and that he was broke. I told her that was not my problem. She started to argue, saying I was being harsh. I reminded her that he had slept with my fiancée in my house in my bed for 2 months. She went quiet. Then she apologized and said I was right. Through mutual acquaintances, I later learned that Kyle's job had not renewed his contract due to performance issues. Amber had moved back in with her parents and was dealing with gossip throughout her social circle. People talked. Word spread. I did not feel triumphant about any of it. I just felt empty, but I also felt free. The first few months after the breakup were hard. I threw myself into my work and ended up getting promoted to senior engineer. I spent more time with my friends, people who had supported me through everything. Marcus and 2 guys from college, Tim and Jasper. They organized weekly game nights and hiking trips. I realized I had neglected these friendships, while I was with Amber too focused on making her happy to maintain the other relationships that mattered. I also started seeing a therapist, Dr. Susan Feldman. She helped me process the betrayal and work through my trust issues. She told me it was not about them anymore. It was about me healing. She taught me that forgiveness does not mean forgetting or excusing what someone did. It means releasing the weight so it does not crush you. That was hard to accept at first, but over time I understood. Forgiving them was not for their benefit. It was for mine. 6 months after everything fell apart, I received a letter from Kyle. It was handwritten 3 pages long. He apologized without expecting forgiveness. He explained that he had always been jealous of me, that I had everything together while he had divorces and failures. He said being with Amber made him feel powerful for once, but it was the worst thing he had ever done. He told me he was in therapy trying to become a better person. I read that letter multiple times. I never replied, but it helped me understand something important. His betrayal said more about him than it did about me. Hurt people hurt people. Kyle's actions came from a place of pain and insecurity, and while that did not excuse what he did, it explained it. I also heard that he and Amber were no longer together. Apparently their relationship had been built on secrecy and thrill. Once that was gone, there was nothing left. I started reconnecting with parts of myself I had forgotten. I learned to play guitar, something I had always wanted to do. I joined a climbing gym and met new people there. I volunteered at an animal shelter on weekends. That was where I met Grace, the volunteer coordinator. She was 30 years old, had a warm smile, and was passionate about animal rescue. We became friends without any romantic pressure. She had her own history with an abusive ex, and we bonded over shared experiences. We did not judge each other, we just listened. One day, Grace said something that stuck with me. She said people show you who they are, and we just have to believe them the first time. I thought about that a lot. There had been signs with Amber, small things I had ignored because I wanted to believe in the fairy tale. The way she pulled away when I asked questions. The defensiveness when I expressed concern. The way she and Kyle acted when I came home early. I had seen the signs. I just had not wanted to believe them. A year after the breakup, I found myself sitting in the same coffee shop where I had first met Amber. It did not hurt anymore. It was just another chapter of my life closed and filed away. I thought about how the worst thing that had ever happened to me had led to some of the best changes. I was stronger now, more self-aware. I knew what I wanted and what I would not tolerate. I was not afraid of commitment, but I was not desperate for it either. My phone buzzed with a text from Grace asking if I was still on for hiking the next day. I smiled and replied that I absolutely was. It was not a love story. Not yet. But it was a healthy connection built on honesty and mutual respect, and that felt like a good place to start. I learned that betrayal says everything about the person who betrays you and nothing about your worth. I learned that self-respect is non-negotiable, that you cannot compromise on it without losing yourself. I learned that you do not need closure from the people who hurt you. You create your own closure. Healing is not linear. There are bad days and good days, moments when the pain comes back, and moments when you feel completely free. And sometimes the people who hurt you do not deserve an explanation. They just deserve your absence. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I had married Amber. Would I have discovered the truth after we exchanged vows, after we had children? In a twisted way, walking through that door that evening saved my life. It destroyed what I thought was my future, but it built something better. It built my self-respect, and that I have learned is something no one can take from you unless you let them. So let me ask you this. Have you ever had to walk away from someone you loved because staying would have cost you your dignity? How did you rebuild after betrayal? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I would love to hear your stories. And if this story resonated with you, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and share this video with someone who might need to hear it. Your support means everything and helps us keep creating content that matters. Thank you for listening to my story. And remember, your self-respect is worth more than any relationship. I wish you healing strength and the courage to choose yourself. Take care.